Okay, my article was Drama in a Broken Teacup, The Old Grandest Miss Baker Plot in McTeague by Donna M. Campbell. At first, she talks about like some of the opinions of other reviewers of the novel, such as one person, Ernest Marchand, thinking that it was the best part of the book, whereas others thought it was one of the dumbest plots of the book and that it had nothing to do with anything. Um, Other opinions have called it absurd Dickensian caricatures that provide comic relief. But then there are other people who have said that, like, it's a more understanding opinion, where, like, William Dillingham said that it's a helpful contrast and balance to the main plot of the McTeagues and their drama. Um, she said that by contrasting and incorporating the old folks storyline, that he was exploring the problems that come with the merging of the literary movements, which were realism, naturalism, and the women's local color fiction. He was also very concerned with questions of the form and genre, especially those posed by realism and naturalism. He said in a letter to Isaac Marcusson about another of his novels, Blix, which from what I read was based on his courting of his own wife, is that it's not naturalism nor romanticism, but it's just a story. He, when he was writing McTeague, he was determined to use it in the naturalism, which was a literary movement that began in the late 19th century and often portrayed realistic situations with both a cynical and impersonal tone. It laid a lot of its stuff because of the theory of evolution, and then the authors that wrote naturalism believed that it could be tracked back to genetic or environmental causes, and that the characters would act in methodical ways according to those principles. So it also, in turn, conflicts with surrealism and romanticism, which focuses on symbolism and preternatural events, as well as romanticizing situations and characters. Um, Norris told one of his critics, William Dean Howells, that he took himself and the writing of McTeague very seriously, which to him at the time meant that he was writing in the strictest form of naturalism. According to Campbell, on the other hand, she says that romance itself for Norris sweeps through the house from high to low, collecting information in every part, lugging both realistic techniques and doctrines of naturalism, which are used unsparingly in order to communicate an image of real life. She thought that the old folks plot is a logical expansion on his critique of another writer, Mary Wilkins Freeman, who at one point Norris praised as being wonderful and amazing, but then she wrote The Heart's Highway and he felt that she had sold out. So he wrote, like, instead of writing to her audience, she wrote for the masses so that she could make $1, and he thought that was the worst thing she could do. So with the old folks plot, he exaggerated the elements that he felt Freeman had already stretched to the limits of credibility. And in Freeman's work, she used the outside world as the only element that could disrupt the stability of the arrangement of her characters, which he also did. Campbell said that Old Grannis and Miss Baker's meeting with bodily excess functions, like as in lovers, was like David Emmons approaching death in Two Old Lovers, in that a credit of humanity and the inevitable infringement of the natural world that brings the old lovers closer together. In a little Elysium of their own creating, Miss Baker and Old Grannis entered upon the long-retarded romance of their commonplace and uneventful lives, which is quoted on page 99 of McTeague. With the words commonplace and uneventful lives, Norris offered up the secret to the old lover's function in the novel. Old Grannis and Miss Baker represent the almost extreme restraint, manners, asexuality, and spiritual self-denial characteristics of the local color fiction, whereas Maria and Zerkow signify the extreme lusts of naturalism, and Trina and McTeague use they're able to sustain their equilibrium until They win the lottery, and then McTeague loses his license, which just overwhelms them. And then as she goes further into her miserliness, is the word that Campbell used, she visits Miss Baker less and Maria more, which denotes her fall from the restraint and middle class propriety of realism to the lower class excess and seediness that characterizes naturalism. Campbell says that Norris indicates his concern with form and genre throughout the theme of storytelling. The stories that are told in local color fiction are extravagant, realistic, and purposeful, and help to foster community solidarity and preserve a sense of the past through relating particulars about specific characters and events. The stories that are told in McTeague are limited, conventional, and unrealistic, which contribute to isolation rather than the sense of community. The characters in the novel trust fiction more than humanity, which to Norris was a problem both in literature and society. Like, for instance, Maria's story of the gold dish that she tells enthusiastically and kind of embellishes until it leads to her death. Zerkow kills her in an attempt to get her treasure, which is kind of why McTeague kills Trina, to get to the money. So Maria's wretched death insinuates the destructive powers of imagination, both hers in making up the story and Zerkow's in believing it, in a narrow, deterministic universe. Norris stresses the destructive power of the false story itself. Okay. Campbell says the only story told by the characters in the novel is Unearned Wealth, and it echoes throughout the lives of all the characters. For example, Maria's tale of the gold dishes and Lost Wealth proposes a fallen station that is comparable to what Old Grannis had suffered and is anticipatory of the suffering of Trina and McTeague. And the lottery tale showed in the McTeague story as well as Old Grannis in that they are threatened and not made happy by the acquisition of wealth. Trina's revolution into Maria, as she kind of devolves from the higher standard, became complete when she became the storyteller. She confronts Old Grannis with the truth of his love for Miss Baker and commanded him to go speak to her and propose to her after he tells her that he is coming to some money. Then their happy ending is signified by Miss Baker's imagining of Old Grannis's noble origins in an attempt to create self and reality. However, the romanticism of the Prince in Disguise theme and the happy ending is diminished by the ambience of death of Maria Trina, and that is implied by Old Grannis and Miss Baker's fragility. As an exploration of the local color fiction, the old folks plot does not deserve the condemnation that it has gotten. Norris's skill at controlling motivation in the local color story is challenging, but the fact that he took such pains to position his character in an existing literary tradition should kill the idea that he does not care about his characters. The characters and their storylines are limited because Norris felt that local color itself was limited. Simply as Norris sees it, neither the old couple nor their story, nor the local color has anywhere else to go. Thank you.